So you're about to start your spousal sponsorship journey, but you're wondering which application class is right for you. Is it the family class or the spouse or common law partner in Canada class? Or maybe you don't even know which class to apply under. So let's make things clear. We'll talk about which class means what, which class is right for you and how to decide that, and finally, where do you actually make the selection when you do your application. Let's go. So here's your guide 5289. I'm going to link it in the description below. You'll find all the information here. Always start with this guide. So if you click on who can you sponsor, here you can find the information about the classes of application available. Primarily, you have two classes available, family class or spouse or common law partner in Canada class. So all the requirements and the eligibility criteria to apply under each of these classes are given here. So make sure you familiarize yourself with this page. So let's talk about the basics of each of these classes first, and then we'll get into some complexities and discuss some scenarios. So first up is spouse or common law partner in Canada class, also commonly referred to as an inland application. So according to the guide 5289, to be eligible to apply under this class, the principal applicant, the one who's applying for permanent residence, has to be living in Canada with their spouse. That is a requirement that is clearly laid out in the guide 5289. So let's take an example. Let's say I'm the sponsor, I'm living in Canada, and my wife, the principal applicant, the one who wants to apply for permanent residence, is living in Canada with me. Then she becomes eligible to apply under spouse or common law partner in Canada class. So my wife could be living in Canada on any temporary visa, and I am obviously the sponsor, so I would either be a permanent resident or a citizen. In this situation, my wife can apply under the spouse or common law partner in Canada class. Next up is family class, also commonly referred to as an Outland application. This class is commonly used by applicants who are outside of Canada and they want to immigrate under spousal sponsorship. So this was my case. I was the sponsor living in Canada at the time, and my wife, the principal applicant, was in India. So we applied for spousal sponsorship under family class. Because she was outside of Canada, that was the only class available to her. Now keep in mind, even if you are inside Canada and living with your partner, you can still choose to apply under family class, and we'll cover that in a second when we'll take a look at certain scenarios. But be clear about the distinction here. Now let's take a look at different scenarios and understand which class will work best for you according to your situation, and where do you actually select the class when you do the application. So you're the principal applicant, and let's say you're living outside of Canada right now and you want to apply for spousal sponsorship. So you will have to apply under family class as an Outland applicant. So here's the online portal. You'll start your application, and when you make this selection, you'll obviously select family, spouse, and here are you applying under, you are going to select family class here. So you'll start the application as a family class applicant and then fill out all the forms and upload all the documents and submit the application under family class. Now, along with the online portal, there is also another document where you will have to select your class. That is the document checklist 5533. So here's the document checklist. If you scroll down to point number 5, class of application, this is where the principal applicant, the sponsored person, has to select the class in which they are applying. So you're the principal applicant outside of Canada, you're applying under family class, and that's why this option is what you should select. The second one, I am currently living outside Canada and I am applying under family class. Now, one of the most obvious drawbacks of the family class application is being away from your sponsor for longer periods of time. So you're the principal applicant outside of Canada, and let's say your sponsor is a permanent resident who's inside of Canada, and you guys have sent the application already under family class. Then as a permanent resident, your sponsor has to maintain residency in Canada for the entire duration of the application. Obviously, short vacations of 2 or 3 weeks are okay for your sponsor, but your sponsor, who's a permanent resident, cannot really stay outside of Canada, or I should say should not really stay outside of Canada for longer periods of time. Otherwise, they will be putting the application at risk. They must maintain residency inside of Canada for the entire duration of the application. So during this entire duration, which can take about 6 months to about a year or sometimes even longer, the principal applicant and the sponsor are away for a major chunk of time. Obviously, if your sponsor is a citizen, they can stay outside of Canada for as long as they want. So they can come visit you, they can even stay with you outside of Canada in wherever your home country is for as long as they want. but it's not always feasible and certainly does not apply to a major chunk of applicants out there. Most of the sponsors, whether they are permanent residents or citizens, have work-related commitments in Canada. So the principal applicant who's outside of Canada has a very lonely time in this family class process. Another drawback for principal applicants under family class is that they cannot really apply for open work permit. So while you're waiting for your permanent residence application to finish processing, which is a very long time, you can't really work in Canada. So even if you manage to get a tourist visa to come to Canada, which by the way is a very hard process on itself, and we'll get to that in a second. So even if you manage to come to Canada on a tourist visa, as an Outland applicant or as a family class applicant, you're not allowed to apply for open work permit. Another drawback of the family class application is difficulty in getting a TRV or a temporary residence visa. So if you've already sent your application for permanent residence under family class and you're outside of Canada, then it becomes very hard to get a tourist visa also, because there is a conflict of intentions here. So to understand that, you need to know what dual intent means. By this time you might already be familiar with this if you have looked into this process. But if you don't know what it means, then I'm going to link a page in the description below. It's IRCC's help page, so you can read all about dual intent there. Basically what that means is you have already applied for permanent residence. So that was intention 1. But now you also have another intention to come to Canada either as a student or a worker or on a temporary visitor visa. So that is known as dual intent because you have two intents here. And by the way, don't get me wrong, it is totally allowed to have a dual intent. It says so itself on the IRCC website. That is not a problem. But making a strong case when applying with dual intent is where a lot of applicants fall short. Because when you already have an ongoing application for permanent residence and you're now applying for tourist visa, you need to prove to the officer that upon the termination of your authorized stay period, basically when your visitor visa ends, you will leave Canada and go back to your home country. And because you already have an ongoing application with the intent of staying permanently in Canada, that is where the conflict happens. And that is why the officer usually does not feel convinced that you will leave Canada at the end of your authorized stay period because you've already applied for permanent residence. So if you're outside of Canada and you've already applied for permanent residence under family class and now you want to apply for a TRV also, you have to make a very strong case that you will return to your home country once the authorized stay period of your tourist visa ends. To do that, you have to prove strong ties to your home country. And strong ties can be proven by a number of documents. For example, if you have an ongoing employment in your home country or rental agreement or business ventures that are ongoing or any other commitments that tie you to your home country which will force you to come back to your home country. So there can be a number of official documents that you can use to prove this, but you have to look into your case and see if you have those documents. If you can provide those documents, along with if you also have a good international travel history, then you can make a strong case for a tourist visa application along with an ongoing family class application. But if you don't have these documents, then it becomes difficult to get a TRV and more often than not, you will end up getting a rejection. So again, in order to apply under the spouse or common law partner in Canada class, you have to be living inside Canada with your spouse. So one of the most obvious advantages of this class is that you can also apply for open work permit. So once you send your inland application for sponsorship, once it reaches an officer and is determined to be complete, at some stage around that you receive a letter from IRCC, something along the lines that states that you now meet the eligibility requirements for permanent residence. This is also commonly referred to as the Approved in Principle letter or the AIP letter, usually issued to inland applicants. So once you receive the AIP letter, then you become eligible to apply for open work permit from inside Canada. By the way, if you want to understand your eligibility further about open work permit from inside Canada and where you can actually apply for open work permit, then I've covered all that in this video. It's linked in the description below, so definitely check that out. So this is a really good option because once you get your work permit approved, then you can start working right away and start making money and contribute to family's income while you wait for your spousal sponsorship application to finish processing. So again, in order to make the selection, here's your document checklist. If you scroll down under point 5, class of application, so you're inside Canada and you are living with your sponsor, so this is the option that you'll select. I'm currently living in Canada with my sponsor and I am applying under the spouse or common law partner in Canada class. Okay. And same thing, if you go back to the online portal, when you are selecting the class, there's only 2 options to choose from. So you're going to select the first option, spouse or common law partner in Canada class. So let's say you're the principal applicant, you're in Canada on a temporary visa, you're living with your spouse who may be a permanent resident or citizen of Canada, and you guys are planning to submit your application. So obviously you can submit your application under the spouse or common law partner in Canada class because you're eligible. But let's say you, the principal applicant, have some ongoing commitments in your home country that require you to be present outside of Canada. So there could be a number of commitments like that. For example, if you're pursuing a degree back home, or you have an ongoing employment situation back home, or you have some older family members or sick family members that you need to be taken care of, or you need to get your own medical treatments back in your home country, or if you just want the ability to be able to travel outside of Canada to take longer vacations with your partner, if you fall under any of these categories, then you are better off applying Outland even if you are inside Canada. Because as an Outland or family class applicant, you can stay outside of Canada for longer durations. Basically, if you apply under family class, you can just leave Canada and then you can stay outside of Canada in your home country and finish your commitments. You don't have to come to Canada until your application finishes processing and you're issued a COPR. So, if your situation requires you to be present outside of Canada somewhere, or if you just want to take long vacations, apply Outland or under family class. That's a much better option for you. Because if you apply under the spouse or common law partner in Canada class, then you are required to stay inside Canada for the entire duration of your application. Obviously, you can take short breaks and travel outside of Canada, but any travel outside of Canada for longer periods or vacations for longer periods outside of Canada, in this case, might put your application at risk. Now, obviously, some people are able to travel for longer periods. Exceptions are possible, and if you are able to make a good case, but for the majority of inland applicants, it is recommended to not travel outside of Canada at all, or if they absolutely have to, keep the travel really short. So again, coming back to the document checklist 5533, under class of application point 5, you are going to select this third option, that I am currently living in Canada and I am applying under the family class, not under the spouse or common law partner in Canada class. And as far as the online portal is concerned, you should select the family class option because you are submitting your application under family class from inside Canada. Okay. So this is another reason why you might have to select family class from inside Canada. So let's say you are in Canada on a temporary visa, and by you, I mean the principal applicant. But because of some educational or work-related commitments, or for whatever reason, you are not living with your partner, who's the sponsor. So let's say your sponsor stays in Vancouver and you stay in Toronto. So then, even if you are inside Canada, you're not really living with your partner. So technically, according to the guide 5289, you are not eligible to apply under the spouse or common law partner in Canada class. So in this case, you should apply under family class because that is the class that you are eligible for. And as an Outland or family class applicant, you are not required to stay with your partner and you are also not required to stay in Canada. So you can continue to stay wherever you are in Canada, complete your commitments. You can even travel outside of Canada, take long vacations. You can visit your home country. You have that freedom as an Outland applicant, right? So there's a lot of debate on which application gets processed faster, inland or Outland. Some claim that inland applications are faster, whereas some claim that Outland applications are faster. My point of bringing this topic is not to give you a timeline, because a standard processing timeline for spousal sponsorship application is about 12 months. Some applications get processed within 12 months and some take much longer. And it doesn't really matter whether they were inland or Outland. The timeline of an application will depend on so many other factors, such as the strength of your application, the complexity of your application, If you received any additional document requests along the way, which will obviously delay the application, how long was your application stuck in background check? So the reason I'm bringing up this issue is not to give you a timeline or to encourage a debate on which application is faster. I just want you to know that you should select a class based on, first of all, your eligibility. So you should be eligible for any class that you're selecting. And second, that class should meet your current and future needs. For example, if you want the ability to apply for open work permit, then Inland is the best option for you. If you want the ability to travel outside of Canada and even stay outside of Canada for longer periods of time, then Outland is the class for you. So this is how you should approach selecting the class, based on your eligibility and your current and future needs. Needs of both the principal applicant and the sponsor, not based on the information about timelines that you hear. Okay, so now that you know which class you should be applying under, you must be wondering who should actually create the account to submit the application in the online portal. So I've covered all of that in this video right here. I'll see you there. Good luck with your application and happy holidays.